Welcome to the first bite-sized learning video created by the Elementary Teaching and Learning Division of Learning Support Services. Our first bite-sized video will be about how to use UDL, Universal Design for Learning, in the distance learning environment. My name is Lene Bates, and this video was created by myself and Amy Quinn, consultants in Learning Support Services. Let's get started. What is Universal Design for Learning? UDL was inspired by architects making buildings more accessible for people with varied physical abilities. Architects noticed that their efforts facilitated access to buildings for all users, not just for people with varied physical abilities. They noticed things like an access ramp, for instance, provided a person using a wheelchair with easier access to a building, but it also made it easier for a parent with a stroller, a cyclist, or someone using a walker to access the building easily. As the cartoon says, clearing the path for someone with special needs clears the path for everyone. Just like in architecture, it became clear in education that strategies and tools put in place to support students with special needs also supported the learning of all students in the class. All students can learn how assistive technology, like Google Read and Write, can support their reading, writing, organizational, and overall communication skills. Flexible seating arrangements in the classroom support varied learning styles. Frequent breaks can aid with focus, creativity, and engagement. Providing a variety of formats for assignments and assessments increase engagement, a positive growth mindset, and feelings of success. Providing choice also allows for students to connect to their learning in authentic ways that are responsive to their needs. Once these conditions for learning have been met, we can start examining some UDL-inspired tips for the DL classroom. Today, you're going to learn the first 3 tips. Tip number 1, explicitly teach your expectations for each activity, specifically outlining how students can demonstrate their learning. Co-create these expectations with your students, whether it is for synchronous learning etiquette, expectations for engagement, breakout group conversations, or other collaborative work. Allow for intentional practice. Let students know that during specified times of the day, you will be asking them to practice these co-created guidelines. And then provide students with opportunities to reflect on how they met these expectations. Tip number 2, allow for breaks. Some students require frequent breaks, and some have this accommodation explicitly stated in their IEPs. Build in whole class breaks with options for synchronous or asynchronous breaks. Gather information on how each of your students would like to take their break. Co-create a list for synchronous break activities and a list of suggested asynchronous break activities. Tip number 3, allow for asynchronous engagement. Record synchronous learning sessions with new information so that students can re-watch later. Provide the link for students in your class to re-watch lessons, or, in some cases, watch them for the first time. Tell students ahead of time before recording sessions and ask them to turn off their cameras. Keep in mind, some students may need to find alternative times to watch lessons given their circumstances at home. Let's summarize today's content. Tip number 1, explicitly teach your expectations for each activity, specifically outlining how students can demonstrate their learning. Tip number 2, allow for regular breaks. Tip number 3, allow for asynchronous engagement. Stay tuned for tips 4 to 6. Thank you for watching our bite-sized learning video. Take some time to reflect on how you could use these tips in your class. The last 3 tips will be shared next time. We're keeping things bite-sized for your busy lives and ease for implementation. See you next time.